This is what happened to every one-off SpongeBob character, starting off with Flats the Flounder, who makes his one and only iconic appearance in Season 3's The Bully, after Mrs. Puff introduces the class to a new student who just so happens to be completely insane.
Tell the class something about yourself, Flats.
Well, I like to kick people's butts.
What a card!
And as this episode progresses, Flats only gets more and more psychotic, which unfortunately SpongeBob finds out firsthand, as Flats then makes it his sole mission in life to harass SpongeBob.
I mean it.
That time it almost seemed like you did mean it.
And thus, naturally fearing for the safety of his spongy exterior, SpongeBob then goes and hides in the toilets, with this whole scene just being brilliantly tense, as you can literally feel the fear being radiated off of SpongeBob as he avoids his fate of being beaten up.
I just gotta act natural.
Oh, that's real nice.
I thought for sure that was gonna be.
However, in my view, the thing that makes Flats such an iconic character is the fact that he can create so much terror with literally only a few words. I mean, when I watched this episode as a kid, I was practically scared that Flats would come and get me too, which of course is completely ridiculous as I grew up in Scotland.
Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
Anyway, back to the episode, we then find out that Flats is also an absolute menace to even his own family, as SpongeBob tries to report Flats' bullying to his dad. But this of course doesn't work, as even his own dad is terrified of Flats kicking his butt.
He wants to kick my butt.
Dad, what are you doing?
Nothing, son.
What did I tell you about talking to strangers?
Now he's gonna kick my butt!
However, after all of the running and hiding in this episode, Flats then inevitably catches SpongeBob. And well, then he gives him the butt kicking that he promised. Although, of course, because SpongeBob is a sponge, he simply absorbs all of Flats' punches.
Gary, I'm absorbing his blows like I was made of some kind of spongy material. And do you know what that means? I get to go to work tomorrow!
And at this point, you may be wondering, whatever happened to Flats the Flounder? Well, YouTube and Reddit theorists have argued many different things, but I think that Flats just got embarrassed by not being able to beat up a sponge, and thus forced his dad to drive him to yet another town where he can continue his reign of violence. And so, moving on, our next one-off SpongeBob character is Squilia, who makes her one and only appearance in Season 7's Love That Squid, after Squidward tells SpongeBob that he's never going to find true love. Well, that is, until all of a sudden, Squilia walks into the Krusty Krab.
Who is that? She's gaga gaga. She's gaga 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 gaga. She's wow.
However, Squidward, of course being Squidward, has absolutely no idea how to talk to a real lady. And after quite literally freezing, SpongeBob then swoops in to save the day, which he does by romancing Squilia on Squidward's behalf.
So how does dinner at 8 sound, Squilia?
I think that sounds perfect. I'll come by your place, okay?
Ha ha.
See you at 8, Squidward.
In fact, SpongeBob then takes Squidward's preparation for his date so far that he even dresses up as Squilia and coaches Squidward on how to act with a lady. Although none of this is actually useful at all. And once SpongeBob slams Squidward down the stairs, well then Squidward finally breaks and gives SpongeBob a piece of his mind. Which, unfortunately for Squidward, was right in the earshot of Squilia.
You just saw that, didn't you?
Oh, only all of it.
And you probably think I'm a mean-spirited brood, which ironically is the exact opposite of what you were expecting, right?
However, in a rather miraculous turn of events, Squilia actually finds the fact that Squidward stood up for himself rather attractive, and once and for all, finally agrees to go on a date with him. Although after this, we've never heard from Squilia ever again, which honestly is a great shame, as it would have been brilliant to see a Squidward relationship relationship play out, and perhaps even see how Squidward's character would have changed with a love interest introduced. However, for now, Squilia will remain a one-off SpongeBob character. And swiftly moving on, our next one-off SpongeBob character is yet another person who wanted to terrorize SpongeBob. However, before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by Private Internet Access, who are the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. And it's easy to see why, as if you're anything like me, well, then you probably get tired of not being able to watch your favorite Netflix shows or sporting events simply because they're blocked in your region. Well, this is where Private Internet Access comes in, as Private Internet Access hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection, meaning that you can now watch all of your favorite shows from around the world even if they're blocked in your region. And on top of this, Private Internet Access is available for all platforms, including Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more, with one subscription covering your entire household. So, what are you waiting for? Use the link in my description below and get an 83% discount, which allows you to use Private Internet Access for only $2.03 per month. And on top of this, you'll get 4 months for absolutely free. And signing up is absolutely risk-free, as there's a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. And of course, a massive thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to SpongeBob. Our next one-off character is SpongeBob's cousin Blackjack, who we see in season 5 after SpongeBob gets a letter from Blackjack saying that he's coming after his parents, and that if he ever wants to see them again, well then he'll have to duel it out. And if it wasn't obvious from this letter, cousin Blackjack isn't exactly a nice guy, as when he and SpongeBob were younger, Blackjack would constantly pick on his little cousin, and not even to teach him anything, but rather just to have fun beating him up.
Come on, little man, let's go a couple of rounds. If you think you're tough.
Why should we?
Because it'll show what a little man you are.
And so, naturally, SpongeBob takes this threat very seriously, and immediately runs to his parents' house, which in an alarming twist now has tape all around it, and much to SpongeBob's shock, is seemingly a crime scene, with this theory only being further solidified once SpongeBob breaks into his parents' house and finds yet another note from Blackjack that seems to have a threat towards his grandma.
SpongeBob, I paid your parents a visit. Now I'm gonna do the same with Grandma. You better hurry, little man boy.
And boy, this time SpongeBob isn't messing around, as after going to his grandma's house and seeing that she's okay, he then goes to his uncle's house, who used to be a police officer. Although boy, his uncle isn't exactly the most reassuring of fellows.
Well, let's just say, I hope you've practiced walking without legs, or arms, or a body.
And so, with all of the diversions behind him, SpongeBob finally bursts into Blackjack's home and comes face to face with the man himself. Or should I say, face to toe, as cousin Blackjack stayed the exact same height since he was a child, and thus is now unable to do any damage to SpongeBob whatsoever.
Just like the old days, eh, cousin?
Yeah, Blackjack. You haven't changed a bit.
However, after this episode, we would never see Blackjack in SpongeBob again, with most fans speculating that he either went back to jail or got so embarrassed at being smaller than his little cousin SpongeBob that he simply left Bikini Bottom forever. However, of course, let me know what you think happened to cousin Blackjack in the comments below. And so, moving on, our next one-off SpongeBob character is Jim, also known as the original fry cook at the Krusty Krab, who we are introduced to in season 5 after he pulls up to the Krusty Krab in a gold-plated limousine, and is then treated like absolute royalty by Mr. Krabs and even Squidward, with Mr. Krabs even unveiling Jim's award for the best Krusty Krab employee ever.
The original is still underneath. Your Best Employee Ever Award!
And of course, this makes SpongeBob both jealous and skeptical. I mean, surely Jim can't be that great. right?
Wrong!
As after SpongeBob tries one of Jim's famous patties, well, then he's immediately taken away to another dimension.
What's so great about a gym patty, anyway? It's okay.
And despite Jim being quite arrogant, he does have some humility as well, as once SpongeBob pleads with him to help him make a perfect Krabby Patty, well, then the duo go on an all-out training montage, with Jim brutally whipping SpongeBob into shape as if he were an army commander. Although, despite SpongeBob not being able to reach Jim's perfect standards, this episode does actually end up having a great message, as Jim warns SpongeBob that if he ever wants to be independently successful, well, then he's got to break away from the Krusty Krab and create his own legacy.
The kid's a good fry cook, but he'll only be a great fry cook when he finally gets the guts to quit this dump. Good luck, SpongeBob. You're gonna need it.
And from this moment on, Jim would never return to the Krusty Krab or Bikini Bottom ever again. And if I had to guess why, it's probably so he can enjoy his retirement in his solid gold mansion.
Ain't that limo solid gold?
It sure is. I was on my way to my solid gold mansion next to my solid gold lake.
And so, before we move on to our final one-off SpongeBob character, here are a few honorable mentions. Starting off with the Alaskan Bullworm, who makes his unforgettable appearance in Season 2's Sandy, SpongeBob and the Worm, as right from the start of this episode, he bulldozes through the entirety of Bikini Bottom, destroying everything in its path.
He ate my wheelbarrow!
He ate my children's homework!
Do I need to say it?
Which then leads to Sandy and her Texas toughness to try and take on this behemoth. And despite Sandy thinking that she'd initially tamed the beast, well, this turns out to be a task that's too big even for Sandy.
Oh, this is the tongue, and the whole thing is the worm. Run for your life!
However, in a brilliantly funny twist, Patrick's idea of taking the town and pushing it somewhere else ends up completely backfiring, and boy, who could have guessed that? As SpongeBob and Sandy are able to divert the worm, only for him to end up destroying the whole town anyway. Although, since destroying Bikini Bottom, we've never seen the Alaskan Bullworm ever again. So hey, maybe he felt bad. And our secondary honorary mention is the man in the gorilla suit and George, who make quite possibly the strangest SpongeBob cameo ever at the end of Season 3's I Had an Accident.
They're onto us!
Let's get out of here.
With this small cameo causing absolute waves in the SpongeBob community, and spawning countless theories as to who these people are, with this, in my opinion, being one of the greatest mysteries in SpongeBob history, as we would never see George or the man in the monkey suit ever again. And finally, for the moment you've all been waiting for, our final one-off SpongeBob character is none other than Plan Crab.
Behold, Plan Crab!
With the unholy abomination that is Plan Crab making his one and only appearance in Season 12's The Krusty Bucket, after Plankton steals Mr. Krabs' DNA in order to make a clone of the pair and once and for all steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. However, of course, because this is Plankton, this ends up going horribly wrong, as not only does Plan Crab completely take over the Krusty Krab and send Mr. Krabs to the curb, but he then also sets his sights on the Chum Bucket, luring in Plankton with his evil handshake and taking full ownership of the Chum Bucket as well.
And I'm afraid your services are no longer required.
Gosh, I still can't get over this handshake.
And so, with Mr. Krabs and Plankton both out of business, they decide to work together to try and stop Plan Crab. which they do initially the old-fashioned way by trying to beat him up. And once that doesn't work, they then settle on just setting up their own competing restaurant, which, let's just say, doesn't go to plan either.
Drive-through! Literally.
However, the way that Plankton and Mr. Krabs defeat Plankrab in this episode is actually rather genius, as after realizing that their fighting causes Plankrab to split in two, the pair then keep going at it until Plankrab fully breaks and loses all of his power.
This is a great handshake.
Splitting? So soon?
And with this being the ending, it truly looks as though we'll never see Plankrab in Bikini Bottom ever again. And so, this is what happened to every one-off character in SpongeBob. And let me know in the comments below, who do you want to see return the most?